Greetings, Clausewitz here. So, while the Swiss mercenaries made a big impact on local politics and military development in the 15th century in Europe, they were relatively quickly replaced, while the Old Swiss Confederation had still contracts with France and provided them and other European states with troops until the 19th century actually. The main force of mercenary in the late 15th century and in the 16th century were the Landsknecht. But what was a Landsknecht? So let us look at the name, the term itself. The word Landsknecht can be literally translated into land or country servant. So it first appeared in 1486 in the legislative record of the Old Swiss Confederation. It is not clear what it meant here, and it is assumed that it is a distinction between like the Swiss mercenaries, which came like from the mountains, from the highlands, while other German mercenaries or soldiers basically came from the lowlands. So this is maybe that the word Land, or here like country and land, refers to lowlands. This could make sense regarding that at this point in time, the Kaiser or the future Kaiser would already actually have Landsknechte around, like soldiers, German mercenaries would, or not only German mercenaries actually, but mercenaries who would like fight like the Swiss. So basically Old Swiss Confederation would already knew about that, and maybe therefore had to a word to distinct basically their own soldiers or their own mercenaries from like other mercenaries who would fight basically the same way and speak a very similar language or basically similar dialects. Therefore this distinction makes sense. So but let us further look at the word. The word Knecht is, like I said, servant. And this doesn't sound military at first, but actually it is. It can also be meant very different things. It is a word throughout the German language in medieval times and later on. And why it means basically servant. You see it in different contexts, like a servant in a household or on a farm, or in the military. You have words like Waffenknecht, weapon servant, or Edelknecht, noble servant, which basically are two words for man at arms. And like the Waffenknecht referring to a commoner, mostly or for a basic man at arms, while the Edelknecht refers to a nobleman. So nobles can be knechtes, so servants basically, mostly for other nobles. But the thing is that you can understand this word more in the sense of a duty, of a job, of a profession, not like a craft, like an artisan or something like this. It's really something like something. You have a position, something has to be filled, something has to be done in a specific way, and maybe because it's your duty or you need the money for it, and therefore this is then often what is a knecht, especially like in more older terms, like the word like for a craftsman came later in the sense of more in the context of cities and some and guilds and stuff like this. But this is not so important here. So basically the word Knecht can mean in Landsknecht soldier, or somebody who has to fight or has to serve basically the land, maybe also like the land in the sense of the local lord or the local city. So this could make sense in here. But when we further look into it, we have other words coming up in this time frame as well. We have in the 15th century the term Landsknecht, which is very similar and refers to a court usher. So he would also sometimes take over military tasks. So this could be a relation in here. Also around 1500, this is the time where basically already German mercenaries would fight like the Swiss. We have the word Landsknecht, which is different but sounds very similar, and the word Lanz here stands for Lanze, which is the German word for lance, and which is also a term you can use for a pike, both in German and in English. And therefore it is very likely that actually this word refers to those soldiers, mercenaries, basically somebody who has to serve with a pike, somebody who has to fight or train with a pike and or a lance. And the funny thing is, I can actually imagine that all those terms kind of fuse together, because Landsknecht and Landsknecht sounds incredibly the same. There's a little bit of a difference in there, but you have to be trained to hear this, so basically kind of have to speak German. So you see that it's spelled differently, and like I've described, it has different meanings. So the thing is that I can imagine people just heard those terms, and then over the like the development of language, we get the word Landsknecht in the sense of also those pike wielding of pike fighting mercenaries. Also another point for this is that basically most common folk would become Landsknechts, would become mercenaries and fight in this manner. So that people assume they mean like Land or Lands, basically like from Lande or from the countryside. This is like how, like I said, how this term could be developed, because they assumed, okay, you mean like common folk would fight in the army or something like this, maybe for money, and this is something which is not so common at this point, that like people could fight for money in the army, so especially common folk. So this is has to be keep in mind in here. So we have no really evidence about this, just those hints and just those relations to each other, but I would say it is a likely form, and yeah, doesn't matter so much, but I think interesting points to share and for the general understanding of it. And now we come to a little problem here. The word Landsknecht can actually mean like three things, especially in German. It can be very complicated, especially if you like start researching the whole subject like I did. You can of course refer in here to like German mercenaries who fight like Swiss mercenaries, basically just like copied the style and the tactics because it was successful. And this happened. So, and like I said, could be also the origin of the term. But you also mean with Landsknecht basically the next step in military development, like mercenary force, which was like professional, were organized, were trained and disciplined, had their own distinct equipment and fighting tactics, and would be basically then the next step towards a more modern military. So this is also how the term is understood. But because of this history about the Landsknecht, those are basically historical terms. We have in German like the development that Landsknecht also can mean just a mercenary of any kind. And when we look into the medieval times and talk and write about this, we often tend to use Landsknecht just for any kind of mercenaries. Not so much in modern times anymore. But as I looked into this, into my sources, I just encountered this description. Oh yeah, this and this lord just like hired a mercenary, so like a Landsknecht army, and I was just like, well, wait, we are kind of too early for this. I thought this would come later, and basically they just mean mercenaries, and this can be a little bit confusing, maybe not so much in English. But yeah, I will concentrate in my videos, of course, on the second meaning of this word. So basically the next development step. I already covered the Swiss mercenaries, so to come towards the Landsknecht is the next logical step. I will talk about the first meaning as well, basically those proto-Landsknechts, which just copied this fighting style, and then basically were the first step for the actual Landsknechts, or to become the actual Landsknecht. And keep in mind, as a side note, I kinda mentioned this in the first part of this video, like in the first half, but the Swiss mercenaries didn't disappear when the Landsknecht came around, even when the Landsknecht were developed. They also changed to some extent. Like I said, the old Swiss Confederation actually still provided other states with soldiers with different numbers. Like France get actually very high numbers of soldiers from the Swiss Confederation, while other states just get a couple of hundreds or so. But the point is, they were still around, but they changed. They basically adopted just modern fighting styles. Like I said, until the 19th century they were around. But like the main force of mercenaries, and like compared to Landsknechts, you had so much more Landsknecht around, especially in the 16th century. And this is to keep in mind that this is what I mean when the Landsknecht replaced the Swiss mercenary. So in my next video I will talk about the rise of the Landsknecht, how and why they came to be. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you not already did. I talk about military stuff in here. So click here for the next part of this video series, or click here for the whole playlist. If you just dropped in, I talk about basically the development of professional mercenaries in medieval Europe and the Renaissance. So hopefully see you soon.